In international diplomacy, everything can change in the blink of an eye. And today, well, it was one of those days. Just a few hours ago, talks between the US and Iran looked completely dead. Now, they're back on. So today, we're going to break down the Islamabad reversal, what just happened, why it happened, and what it means for all of us.
I mean, really, just a few hours ago, the door seemed slammed shut. The talks were off, the ceasefire was about to expire, the world was seriously bracing for the worst. It really felt like we were teetering right on the edge of a major conflict.
And it wasn't a quiet no. It was a public, emphatic no. No to negotiations, no to a second round of talks in Islamabad. This wasn't just some diplomatic hiccup. This was a move that looked like it could throw the entire region into chaos.
But then, in a truly stunning turn of events, the entire situation just flipped on its head. Because behind all the public shouting, a completely different story was taking shape.
That's right. While Tehran hasn't confirmed it publicly just yet, we're hearing from multiple sources, we're talking the Wall Street Journal, U.S. officials, that Iran has told mediators they are sending a team to Pakistan. This is a massive development, a complete 180 from where we were this morning. The talks are officially back on.
So how on earth do you get from a hard no to a yes in just a matter of hours? It's pretty incredible. To really get it, we need to look at the timeline of how this wild day played out. Talk about whiplash. This slide really lays it out. You wake up this morning and the news is that Iran has flat out rejected talks, saying they won't negotiate under threat. Then, bam, this afternoon, the Wall Street Journal drops a bombshell. Secret talks were in the works the whole time. And now, as we speak, both the U.S. team, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, and an Iranian delegation are literally packing their bags for Islamabad. It's been a whirlwind, and you can just feel how high the stakes are.
Okay, so what gives? What could possibly force such a dramatic U-turn in such a short amount of time? Well, our sources are pointing to three really critical factors that basically forced Tehran's hand. First, and this is the big one, is the absolutely staggering economic collapse happening inside Iran. We're talking about an inflation rate of 68%. Just let that sink in. That's the highest it's been since World War II. People can't afford food. Add a crippling U.S. naval blockade to that, and you've got an economy that's in an absolute freefall. The cost of just walking away from talks was becoming unbearable for the leadership.
The second thing was just relentless diplomatic pressure. This wasn't just a few phone calls. As this quote from NPR puts it, mediators from Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey have been working around the clock. Pakistan's army chief even flew to Tehran himself. That kind of intense, nonstop pressure from your own partners, it becomes impossible to ignore.
And the third factor, the American military threat wasn't a bluff. It was credible, and it was imminent. The clock was ticking. The White House made it crystal clear that President Trump had no plans to extend the ceasefire past its Wednesday deadline. So Iran knew, if talks didn't happen, they weren't just looking at more sanctions. They were looking at the very real possibility of U.S. strikes on their critical infrastructure.
So you can see the stakes are incredibly high. But what's actually on the table in Islamabad? These talks aren't just about geopolitics in a far-off place. They have direct consequences for economies all over the world. And yeah, that very likely means for you too.
The agenda is absolutely packed. We're talking about Iran's nuclear ambitions, reopening the super-important Strait of Hormuz shipping lane, relief from those crushing sanctions, unfreezing Iranian money held in other countries, and the incredibly volatile situation in Lebanon. Every single one of these is a potential deal-breaker. The outcome here is going to send ripples across the entire globe.
If you're in the United States, you've definitely been feeling the pain at the pump. The conflict sent gas prices soaring, and look, economists are saying they won't be back to normal for months. But a successful deal would be a huge first step. It would at least stop the bleeding, halt that constant upward climb and start us on the long road to recovery.
Now, for folks in the UK, there's a real glimmer of hope here. Iran's decision to even show up is the first piece of good news for British energy prices in days. And a successful deal? Well, that could mean some welcome relief at the pump, with lower fuel costs in as little as 2 weeks.
Over in Canada and Australia, the markets are already reacting with some cautious optimism. Their currencies actually got stronger on the hope that reopening those Gulf shipping routes could be a game changer for global supply chains. And ultimately, that could lead to lower prices for consumers.
And then there's Germany, which is facing a severe energy crisis this summer. For them, the stakes are enormous. The news of these talks sent European markets surging, and for good reason. Germany has the most to gain from a permanent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
It's a critical artery for their energy supply.
With that ceasefire expiring tomorrow, the clock is ticking. This really all comes down to the next 24 hours. So, what are the most likely outcomes? Analysts are basically looking at 3 distinct scenarios.
Let's walk through these. Scenario 1 is the dream scenario, a full deal. The Strait of Hormuz reopens, the ceasefire is made permanent, and oil prices drop sharply. That's the best case for everyone. Scenario 2, which a lot of analysts think is the most likely, is just an extension. So no final deal, but they agree to extend the ceasefire for another 30 to 45 days so they can keep talking. Oil prices would stay high, but at least they'd be stable. And then there's the nightmare scenario. The talks completely collapse. The ceasefire ends, the U.S. begins renewed strikes, and oil prices spike above $120 a barrel, which could easily trigger a global recession.
Look, the fact that Iran is even sending a team is a huge sign of hope. It suggests that even they think a deal, or at the very least an extension, is possible. Hope is fragile for sure, but tonight it's alive. So as the whole world holds its breath, the real question is, what kind of world are we going to wake up to tomorrow? One that's on a path to peace, or one that's back on the brink of a much wider war?